as Lanluo was about to erupt, experts from Cloud Sect and Sky Sect flew over through the air. Chunan felt greatly assured and stepped forward to welcome them. Chunan of Luo's sect welcomes the elders of Cloud Sect and Sky Sect. Several elders from Cloud Sect and Sky Sect ascended through the air and came forward. The two sides cupped their fists in greeting, considered a proper salute. Then they all turned to face the cloud-piercing flying chariot of Evil Sky Pavilion. The scene was grand and crowded, clearly showing that Luo's sect had made thorough preparations. Lu Zhou, seated calmly on the flying chariot, was in no rush. The only one he wanted to see was Yuntian Luo, and he already suspected that Yuntian Luo wouldn't show up so easily. These individuals, Lung Luo, Pan Litian, and Hua Wudao, were more than enough. There was no need for him to appear in person. The Lethal Strike card now cost 3,000 per piece, with only 2 in stock. Using one would be a loss no matter what. The Heavenly Riding Divine ability could only be used 3 times. If both sides truly fought to the death, Evil Sky Pavilion would be in a tough spot. After all, Lung Luo and Pan Litian had not yet fully recovered their cultivation, so intimidation was the best strategy. Zhao Ji, Grand Elder of Cloud Sect, greets you all. Sun Hong, Second Elder of Cloud Sect, greets you all. Ding Fanqiu, Sixth Elder of Cloud Sect, greets you all. Ding Fanqiu was clearly lacking in confidence. Ming Shirin waved at him and said, Ding Fanqiu, we meet again. Haven't seen you for a while. Have you gotten rounder? Just thinking about how he once pretended to be Ji Tiandao by the heaven-crossing river made him cringe with embarrassment. His old face flushed red with shame. With the real one right here, he couldn't act cocky at all. Fang Wenxian, Grand Elder of Sky Sect, greets you all. Sky Sect had brought just one elder, the rest were disciples, but it was enough. With all these people combined, the momentum wasn't weak at all. Besides, Luo Sect's sanctuary had formations and barriers, giving them enough confidence to hold dialogue with Evil Sky Pavilion. Chunan rose into the air and said to Lung Luo, Elder Lung, please calm your anger. The elders from Cloud Sect and Sky Sect are all here. If Pavilion Lord has anything to say, just tell me directly. As soon as he finished speaking, something flew out from the flying chariot. It was light and small. Everyone present was an expert with sharp eyesight, and when they saw what floated out, they were all astonished. A gourd. The gourd that flew out looked like a piece of trash as it was hurled toward Chunan. Chunan also found it strange and grumbled inwardly. Demons will always be demons, throwing garbage around in a sacred land. Such terrible manners. So Chunan casually waved his hand, and a gust of forceful energy swept toward the gourd. The gourd wasn't blown away. Instead, it continued flying toward Chunan, still very light and slow, like a feather. Chunan sensed something was wrong and raised his hand again. This time it wasn't a forceful energy wind, but a forceful energy palm strike. He struck out with a palm imprint. The palm imprint collided with the gourd, and the gourd began to spin, its speed increasing. Damn, it's a weapon. Chunan raised both palms and launched multiple palm strikes in succession. The gourd suddenly emitted a golden light, transforming into a golden gourd, and dove downward toward Chunan. Caught off guard, Chunan was struck from above by the gourd like a heavy hammer and took the hit head-on, his body falling. He crashed heavily onto the marble floor, leaving behind a human-shaped imprint. Elder, Grand Elder. Everyone was shocked. At the same time, Pan Litian floated out from the flying chariot, looking tipsy and lazy, and said loudly, Bunch of rabble, know your place. This old man isn't Lung Luo, only using some dodging tricks. Pan Litian belched in public and loudly added, My gourd, it can kill people, you know. Pan Litian's sudden move shocked everyone. Even Ming Shirin, Hua Wudao, and Little Yuaner hadn't expected the old man to suddenly make a move. Pan Litian practiced orthodox Taoist techniques, not evasive arts like Dao Hidden. In a head-on confrontation, his combat strength was above Lung Luo's. How could Lung Luo go head-to-head with him? Hearing Pan Litian boast while hitting someone, Lung Luo retorted, Is it something to brag about, bullying the weak with a weapon? Pan Litian laughed heartily. That's all this old man's got. On Luo Sect's first sacred ground, many elders quickly came forward to check on Chunan's condition. Several streams of forceful energy arrived at Chunan almost simultaneously, clearing away the ground. Grand Elder, Elder Chu. Chunan looked up at the sky, his eyes wide open, his face flushed red, as if holding back a mouthful of air. After holding it for a while, he couldn't endure anymore and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood toward the sky. Everyone stepped back to avoid the blood. Chunan finally exhaled, and with great difficulty, pointed his right hand toward the sky. Pan Litian glanced at the still-alive Chunan in slight surprise and rubbed the gourd in his hand. Lung Luo chuckled and said, So this is what you meant by kill? That's all? My cultivation hasn't fully recovered. It was just a small accident. Pan Litian replied. The two senior experts from Evil Sky Pavilion hovered in the air, one on the left and one on the right, their imposing presence enough to intimidate the experts from Cloud, Sky, and Luo Sects. Who could defeat Grand Elder Chunan in a single strike? Such a person could hardly be a nameless figure. May I ask how to address you, senior? Grand Elder Fang Wenxian of Sky Sect cupped his fists and asked. Pan Litian said lazily, You want to remember this old man's name so you can come take revenge in the future? Lung Luo gently shook his head. Pan Litian, a true man does not change his name when walking, nor his surname when sitting. What are you afraid of? The name Pan Litian instantly caused an uproar in the crowd, like a stone stirring 1,000 waves. The elders below started whispering among themselves. themselves. This was the #1 expert of Clarity Sect. A figure like him had disappeared from Clarity Sect centuries ago without a trace. Why had he suddenly become part of Evil Sky Pavilion? Shock, astonishment, and also concern. With Evil Sky Pavilion appearing in such force, how could they possibly leave easily? Sky Sect wasn't too concerned, but the people from Cloud Sect looked visibly uneasy. There was deep enmity between Cloud Sect and Evil Sky Pavilion. If Evil Sky Pavilion decided to strike now, how would they respond? So it's Elder Pan, Grand Elder Zhao Ji of Cloud Sect, greeted respectfully. I don't have time to waste words with you. Hurry up and bring out your sect's patriarch. This old man has no patience. Just then, Hua Wudao stepped forward and looked toward Cloud Sect's Grand Elder Zhao Ji. Zhao Ji frowned. Elder Hua. Everyone in Cloud Sect knew that Hua Wudao had left to challenge Ji Tiandao at Evil Sky Pavilion. Cloud Sect had even supported his decision to confront his inner demons. What they hadn't expected was that Hua Wudao would actually join Evil Sky Pavilion. This matter caused great outrage throughout Cloud Sect. Some even said Hua Wudao had utterly disgraced Cloud Sect. They should just summon the sect's patriarch. At that moment, the 9-character 6 union seal on Hua Wudao's body suddenly erupted. The Bagua symbol and the 9 characters expanded outward, dazzling in golden radiance. As the 9-character 6 union seal appeared, disbelief filled Zhao Ji's eyes. The elders of Luo Sect suddenly understood what that initial statement, "not qualified to speak with the Pavilion Lord of Evil Sky Pavilion," really meant. What kind of presence was Evil Sky Pavilion? And who had the 3 sects sent? Even their sect leaders hadn't shown up. How could they claim to be qualified to negotiate without the sect leaders present? Wasn't that a show of disrespect toward Evil Sky Pavilion? Hua Wudao landed in the center of the first Sacred Grounds Plaza. He looked around and said, "Go summon your patriarch." Playing tricks in front of these senior masters, don't you find it childish? The elders of the 3 sects all flushed with shame. Hua Wudao was originally a senior figure of Cloud Sect. Even now, as a member of Evil Sky Pavilion, his appearance still invoked a sense of reverence among Cloud Sect's members. What he said was true. Lin Luo, Pan Lydian, Hua Wudao, weren't all of them seasoned and worldly figures? When these elders of the senior pavilion once roamed the world, the people of the 3 sects here were likely still in their mother's wombs. To play schemes and tricks before them, how childish that was. Atop the cloud-piercing flying chariot, Lu Zhou finally spoke. Yun Tian Luo. His voice was deep and resonant, and what followed was a startling sight. The sound waves rolled out like water, one wave after another, continuously sweeping toward the other 9 sacred grounds. Centered on the flying chariot, ripples and circles of light began to form. People from the 3 sects looked up, hardly able to believe the sound waves radiating outward from the flying chariot. Even Lung Luo and Pan Lydian, both 8-leaf experts, showed visible surprise. Traditionally, Confucian and Buddhist schools had stronger mastery of sonic power, while Taoist training in that field was weaker. Yet this one sentence, they couldn't even tell which school the sonic power came from. After the voice faded, everything came to an abrupt halt. No one dared to speak. No one dared to question. Next, from the center of the heavenly sacred land, a wave of sound rolled forth. The sound wave was also deep and powerful, yet carried a trace of anger. Slap their mouths. The members of the 3 sects thought the words were directed at the people of Evil Sky Pavilion and were just about to feel pleased. But then they saw the primal energy wrapped in the sound waves suddenly condense into forceful energy, and countless palm-shaped forceful energy manifestations landed squarely on the faces of everyone from Cloud Sect, Sky Sect, and Luo Sect. "Patriarch, forgive us." All the disciples of the 3 sects knelt to the ground. From the direction of the heavenly sacred land, a white-robed elder with snow-white hair and a beard over a foot long stepped into the air. Each of his steps spanned dozens of meters, and every step stirred ripples through the air. In just a few breaths, the white-robed elder flickered into view above the first sacred ground of Luo Sect. The disciples of the 3 sects all fell to their knees, bowing in unison to the patriarch. At that moment, 3 more figures flew in from afar, each arriving instantly through great supernatural powers. In the blink of an eye, they too arrived in midair above the sacred ground and knelt in the air. Cloud Sect's current sect master Yun Wuji greets the patriarch. Sky Sect's current sect master Nangong Wei greets the patriarch. Feng Yiji, current sect master of Luo Sect, greets the patriarch. Yun Tian Luo casually waved his hand, and 3 palm-shaped forceful energy imprints shot toward Yun Wuji, Nangong Wei, and Feng Yiji. Each hit its mark perfectly. The 3 made no attempt to dodge and took the slaps head-on. Their cheeks burned with pain, and their expressions turned grim. No matter how high one's status was, it became worthless before the patriarch. Without turning back, Yun Tian Luo spoke. "Honored guests have arrived. How dare you show such disrespect?" With that one sentence, Yun Tian Luo made clear the reason behind slapping them. Many disciples were filled with shock. Even the patriarch treated Evil Sky Pavilion with such courtesy. Was Evil Sky Pavilion truly that unreachable? "We acknowledge our mistake," they said. At this moment, Lung Luo and Pan Lydian cupped their fists toward him and flew apart to either side. "If others show me an inch of respect, I'll return them a yard." Yun Tian Luo raised an eyebrow. "You old man, at your age, shouldn't you be resting on a mountain somewhere? What are you doing here at my place? You're practically halfway in the grave. If I hadn't come now, you'd already be a pile of bones." Lu Zhou replied. Lu Zhou slapped both armrests of his chair and flew into the air. As a fellow patriarch, patriarch. Lu Zhou hovered mid-air, hands clasped behind his back, standing directly in front of Yun Tianluo. Yun Tianluo looked somewhat incredulous. It seems you've grown younger. I'm afraid I'm nearing my end. Lu Zhou placed one hand behind his back and stroked his beard with the other. I came to see you. Are you not going to welcome me? Yun Tianluo waved his hand. Old friends meeting again. Of course you're welcome. Let me apologize on behalf of these ignorant juniors. As he spoke, Yun Tianluo cupped his hands and bowed toward Lu Zhou. This scene left the disciples of the three sects utterly stunned. When had they ever seen the patriarch bow to anyone like this? But since the patriarch was doing so, how could they dare have any objections? Yun Tianluo made a gesture of invitation, and Lu Zhou, without hesitation, stepped down through the air. Master, I want to come too. Little Yuaner had long wanted to go down. Staying on the flying chariot was just too boring, so she quickly jumped down and flew toward Lu Zhou. Yun Tianluo's gaze swept over little Yuaner, and he nodded in praise. Excellent talent, remarkable physique. Such a prodigy appears only once in 1,000 years. Lu Zhou shook his head and said, You've trained quite a few disciples yourself. Yun Tianluo laughed heartily. Compared to your disciples, they're far inferior. Just one righteous and one demonic, that's all. I think there's no difference at all, Lu Zhou replied. After landing, they found that a stone table and stone stools had already been prepared in the center of the sacred ground. The two sat facing each other, while everyone else could only stand respectfully at a distance behind them. Yun Tianluo looked up at Leng Luo, Pan Lidian, and Hua Wudao in the distance, then spoke. Brother Ji, what brings you here from so far away? A maid quickly served fruits and tea. Upon seeing these, Yun Tianluo waved his hand and flung them all at the faces of the Luo sect disciples. Outrageous! The Luo sect disciples all knelt down, trembling in fear. Yun Tianluo said in a deep voice, Brother Ji, please don't take offense. These young ones don't know proper manners. Lu Zhou was not one to fuss over such matters and said calmly, I came to see you, not to watch how you discipline your disciples. I'll get straight to the point. That's exactly what I hoped for, Yun Tianluo replied. The old devil Lu Zhou and Yun Tianluo had finally met, and the disciples of the three sects had their curiosity thoroughly piqued by this high-level exchange. At that moment, Leng Luo suddenly waved his hand, and a forceful energy barrier instantly sealed off the heavens and the earth. The disciples of the three sects collectively lost it. This was a once-in-a-millennium peak-level conversation. They could only stare longingly from the outside. Inside the barrier, Lu Zhou asked, Your end, is it in 30 years? Yun Tianluo sighed. More or less. Brother Ji, it seems your time is even shorter than mine. Lu Zhou didn't deny it and nodded. Judging by the outside world and my true condition, it wouldn't be surprising if tomorrow was the end. Yun Tianluo asked, Did you come here to seek a way to survive? But as soon as he asked, he quickly shook his head and corrected himself. Brother Ji, you must be joking. If even you have no way, how could I possibly have one? Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said, Are you trying to break through to 9 leaves? Yun Tianluo sighed. I gave up long ago. Before my time was up, I already lost nearly 70 years worth of blood essence. After that, my cultivation dropped sharply. There's no chance for me to attempt 9 leaves again. Leng Luo and Pan Lidian exchanged glances when they heard this. Lu Zhou's eyes sharpened, and he asked, Have you ever considered that breaking through to 9 leaves might inherently require sacrificing lifespan? Yun Tianluo furrowed his brow, his eyes lit up, and even his body suddenly froze for a moment. Brother Ji, don't tell me you've tried it. Yun Tianluo had always explored on his own. There was no one to consult, and in all of Great Flame, if anyone was most qualified to attempt 9 leaves, who else but Ji Tiandao? He suddenly became eager to know what insights and experiences this old demon Ji might have. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said self-deprecatingly, I've tried. The lifespan drains quickly. Perhaps tomorrow I'll be buried in the earth, turning into a pile of yellow soil. It wouldn't be surprising. Leng Luo and Pan Lidian were inwardly astonished. It was as if they were witnessing 2 elders attempting to open the door to 9 leaves. In this very conversation before them was like a crack in that door, a true crack, completely different from anything before. Beyond it was still a pitch-black unknown. Yun Tianluo paused slightly, then sighed. Brother Ji, don't lament. I too will soon follow after you. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and nodded, glancing at him calmly, then asked, Are you ready? Yun Tianluo looked puzzled. Ready for what? Lu Zhou's words were calm and direct. Naturally, for death. Yun Tianluo raised his aged and profound eyes, gazing at Lu Zhou before him, and the more he looked, the more he sensed something was off. Brother Ji, you're not ready? They were both men with 1 foot already in the grave. Was it appropriate to tease each other like this? But then again, it was precisely because they were such people that they could have such a conversation. Lu Zhou shook his head but said nothing. Yun Tianluo gave a dry, slightly weary, and dejected laugh. Brother Ji, you didn't come all this way just for a chat, did you? Lu Zhou nodded. To be frank, I came here to ask you face to face about your insights and experience when attempting 9 leaves. Yun Tianluo gave Lu Zhou a complicated look, unsure why he would ask such a thing, because in terms of understanding that path, he admitted he was far inferior to Ji Tiandao. Who in the world didn't know the prowess of the evil Sky Pavilion's Pavilion Lord, and who didn't know that Ji Tiandao had already set foot on the threshold of 9 leaves long ago? Yun Tianluo let out a long sigh and said, If not for the limits of truth itself, I believe, Brother Ji, you would be the first man to reach 9 leaves. Lu Zhou refuted, Not Not necessarily. There's always a sky beyond the sky, and someone stronger beyond every man. No one can guarantee there are no hidden masters in seclusion. Besides, who says truth cannot be broken? Yun Tianluo was stunned. Lu Zhou's aged face showed a gentle smile. Truth is void and obscure, clouding the heart with confusion. Though it cannot be understood, why not reinterpret it in worldly terms? Brother Ji, your words are more enlightening than a decade of study. I am humbled. Yun Tianluo waved his hand, and the shield barrier previously set by Lung Luo dissipated. He turned and looked back. Bring me my chessboard. Feng Yiji, sect master of Luo sect, bowed and said, yes, sir. Feng Yiji respectfully brought over an exquisite chessboard, placed it on the stone table, then stepped back beside Yun Tianluo. Yun Tianluo said, Brother Ji, since we are limited by our cultivation, let us determine our skill on this board. Lu Zhou stroked his beard while gazing at the chessboard. In his memory, Ji Tiandao's chess skills were atrocious, and in his previous life, Lu Zhou only had a superficial knowledge of Go. He didn't truly know how to play. How could he compete meaningfully? He examined the board briefly. It seemed somewhat different from an ordinary one. In addition to the standard 19 horizontal and 19 vertical lines, it had faint and fine formation patterns intricately carved across its surface. Lu Zhou said, it seems your cultivation has dropped quite a bit. Yun Tianluo nodded. As the end approaches, a decline in cultivation is inevitable. I thought Brother Ji would be the same as me, but you've surprised me more than I expected. Yun Tianluo picked up a black stone. Lu Zhou glanced at the piece and asked curiously, aren't we deciding who takes black and white? Yun Tianluo smiled and said, Brother Ji, you are older than I, surely you won't mind. As he spoke, the stone landed on the upper left corner of the board. At the intersection of lines, golden forceful energy lit up, flowing along the carvings. The formation patterns across the entire chessboard were activated by the placement of the stones. Lu Zhou understood. Within the board lay a world of its own, and energy flowed continuously through the etched formations. At that moment, Lu Zhou entered the game with a white stone, placing it in the lower right corner. Click. As the two sides confronted each other, the sacred ground lit up. Yun Tianluo couldn't help but marvel, then placed another stone. Forceful energy surged forth. With that move, countless sword-shaped forceful energy spiraled above the sacred ground. Lu Zhou's expression remained calm, though he now fully understood. This chessboard was the key to activating the barrier formation. One didn't need great skill in the game, only knowledge of how to break formations. Forceful energy circled the formation lines. Wherever the lines lit up matched exactly where the sword-shaped forceful energy appeared above the sacred ground. The chessboard was the world itself. Lu Zhou placed another stone. As it landed, several of the sword-shaped forceful energy beams in the sky scattered as if slapped away. The disciples of the three sects stepped back, watching the changes around them in shock. Yun Tianluo placed another stone. The formation lines burst with brilliance, and several streams of sword-shaped forceful energy spun neatly toward Lu Zhou. Back away. Everyone stared in astonishment at the sky filled with sword aura. When Lu Zhou placed his stone, the sacred ground erupted with even more sword forceful energy, and the sword energies from both sides began clashing fiercely. No one knew how long the battle lasted, but suddenly, all the sword forceful energy dispersed into the world. Yun Tianluo abruptly opened his clouded eyes, looked up at Lu Zhou, and let out a surprised, strange sound. Lu Zhou held a chess piece between two fingers, fully focused on the formation lines on the board. Yun Tianluo suddenly felt a shift in space and time within the formation. His breath steadied, his mind emptied, and then, with a trace of melancholy, he said, no wonder, no move surpasses having a move, no piece surpasses having a piece. Brother Ji, to remain completely unaffected by the layout of the board in such a situation, admirable, truly admirable. Lu Zhou kept his eyes on the formation lines on the board and said calmly, it's not that I'm unaffected, it's that I simply don't understand chess at all. Yun Tianluo gave a slight smile, picked up a stone, and placed it down. Tap. Suddenly, a brilliant light erupted. The formation lines connected with the 19 horizontal and vertical paths, and the surrounding scenery was overwhelmed by intense light. Everything was engulfed in its glare. Lu Zhou lifted his head and turned slightly, then frowned deeply. He saw that Yun Tianluo, who had been sitting across from him, seemed to have vanished. In his place were a series of strange images. There was a young boy, rapidly growing up within the visions. Yun Tianluo's consciousness, emotions, joy, anger, sorrow, happiness, all his struggles in bitter cultivation, were displayed one by one. Lu Zhou guessed that the part of his own memory that was missing had probably been sealed using a similar method, stored within a crystal. Yun Tianluo had embedded his consciousness during his attempt to break through the 9 leaves into the chessboard. The images shifted, sun and moon rotated, day and night alternated. Lu Zhou saw energy at the peak of the 8 leaves gathering in Yun Tianluo's energy center in Energy C. Yun Tianluo sat calmly in a world full of forceful energy, and the energy was expanding and growing at an incredible speed. This was the process of breaking through the 9 leaves. Lu Zhou saw the golden lotus beneath Yun Tianluo resembling a vortex, constantly absorbing energy. Only through the 100 tribulation insight does one generate a golden lotus. The golden lotus is like a tree's root. It supplies energy to nourish and flourish the leaves. But now, the golden lotus was absorbing energy, yet Yun Tianluo showed no sign of sensation. This was the cause of his declining cultivation, energy dispersing, the golden lotus vanishing. Everything around them returned to its original state in an instant. Everything returned to normal. Yun Tianluo and Lu Zhou still held their chess pieces, arms suspended above the board, eyes locked across from each other, neither stone yet placed. Lu Zhou quietly looked at the dazed and dispirited Yun Tianluo across the board. It was very quiet, very still. After a long time, Yun Tianluo's index and middle fingers began to tremble. Unable to hold the black stone, it slipped from between his fingers and landed on the board. The lines on the chessboard lost their luster, and the golden light faded away. The stones on the board looked as if they had weathered away. The 19 horizontal and vertical lines remained clear, but all the formation patterns were destroyed. The sect masters of the three sects, standing not far away, witnessed the scene, and were so anxious they nearly leapt forward. Patriarch, Yun Tianluo said flatly, Nangong Wei, disciple is here. If anyone dares to come forward, they will be punished according to the harshest laws of the three sects. Nangong Wei froze, unable to understand, but could only bow and say, disciple obeys. Nangong Wei stepped in front, and the disciples and elders of the three sects had no choice but to stop, sighing and shaking their heads. Yun Tianluo's condition looked even more drained than before. Looking at Lu Zhou, he said, I lost. Using the game of chess, there were two matters I wished to discuss with Brother Ji, but alas, Brother Ji is completely unaffected by the board's 19 horizontal and vertical lines. All I hoped was that Brother Ji could see what was sealed within the board. There are many things I can no longer remember clearly. Whether they're worth Brother Ji's attention, I do not know. As he spoke, he gave a despondent smile. Place your piece. Lu Zhou looked calmly at Yun Tianluo. I've already seen the memory. As for the stone, what need is there to place it? Yun Tianluo said wearily. In a game of chess, a loss is a loss. However much it is, that's the price. 30 years of my life hang on this one move. To be precise, Yun Tianluo had sealed his memory of attempting 9 leaves within the board and used the game as a means to unlock it. But the cost of unlocking it was lifespan. From Yun Tianluo's expression, Lu Zhou had already guessed this. No matter where I place the stone, you'll pay the price. Are you sure you want me to go through with it? Yun Tianluo showed a pleading look as he gazed at Lu Zhou. Defeat was already certain. If no stone was placed, it would be a total loss. If the stone was placed, there was still a sliver of hope. Lu Zhou shook his head. As foolish as Gong Yuandu. The only difference is, Gong Yuandu longed for death, while Yun Tianluo still wants to live. One who dares to sacrifice 30 years just to resolve a chess game. What a foolish setup. Lu Zhou glanced at the weathered chessboard, his gaze calm. His arm slowly descended. Just when Yun Tianluo thought Lu Zhou would place the piece in the right position, Lu Zhou instead moved it to the left and placed the white stone among 4 black stones. A gust of forceful energy swept in, and the chessboard vanished. The sacred ground beneath their feet lit up with formation lines. A shimmer of light flashed, then faded back into stillness. Yun Tianluo froze, leaning slightly back. He looked at Lu Zhou and said, Thank you, Brother Ji, for showing mercy. Lu Zhou said calmly, By placing the stone this way, you lose a little less. 30 years, you still have 10 left. The old devil Lu Zhou clearly sensed that a significant portion of Yun Tianluo's lifespan had already been absorbed by the formation lines on the chessboard. Yun Tianluo said with some emotion, I didn't expect Brother Ji to place the stone like that. He couldn't understand why Ji Tiandao, someone even older than himself, would abandon the move in such a way. Yun Tianluo looked at Lu Zhou and asked, May I ask, what exactly did Brother Ji see? Lu Zhou sighed. I can't say for certain. Yun Tianluo nodded, then suddenly asked again, Those who reach the peak of 8 leaves are already very few. Relying on myself alone, it's true I can't be sure, since Brother Ji has tried it too. Do you have no recollection either? Lu Zhou had no intention of revealing what he saw. It wasn't clear. The scenes just now. Every cultivator likely experiences something similar. When energy reaches its peak, no one can clearly see what exactly happens to the golden lotus. Even so, it was only from the perspective of an observer that Lu Zhou had barely been able to see anything. Who could have predicted it would turn out this way? Yun Tianluo nodded slowly, his expression growing increasingly dispirited. Losing 20 years of life had worsened his condition significantly. Even Sky Sect's sect master Nangong Wei could no longer stand by. He was the first to rush forward and support Yun Tianluo. Patriarch. Yun Tianluo frowned and scolded. Who told you to come over? Lu Zhou raised a hand and said, It's fine. As Nangong Wei held Yun Tianluo, his expression changed suddenly. Patriarch, your lifespan. He had sensed a sudden and significant loss of life force from Yun Tianluo. His heart was filled with shock, and he immediately looked toward the stone table in front of him. The chessboard had long since weathered beyond recognition. Senior Ji, must you press so hard? Lu Zhou slowly stood up, one hand clasped behind his back, the other stroking his beard, ignoring Nangong Wei. Yun Tianluo's condition worsened steadily. He slowly raised his hand and grasped Nangong Wei's arm. Do not be rude. Nangong Wei couldn't understand. Why did the patriarch, even in such a state, insist on unlocking the chessboard? In the sky outside the sacred ground, a figure pierced through the air with a flurry of sword light. Countless sword-shaped forceful energy surged forward, aiming directly at the old devil's face. Give me back my junior brother's life. The disciples of the three sects gasped and cried out. It's Cloud Sect's Sword Altar Grandmaster, Sword Saint Saint Luo 13. Luo 13's sword tore through the air with full force. Master, little Yuaner and Ming Shirin cried out in alarm. Even Lung Luo and Pan Litian furrowed their brows. What no one expected was that the old devil Lu Zhou didn't move at all, still standing with one hand behind his back. By attaining the wisdom of total annihilation, one can dwell in samadhi and manifest countless forms, like light and shadow, appearing everywhere, yet resting in stillness, unmoved. Thousands of sword forceful energy converged into one and struck straight at Lu Zhou's forehead. Lu Zhou raised his right hand, a pale blue energy coiled around his fingers. With his index and middle fingers, he caught Luo 13's sword. All the gathered sword forceful energy instantly dissipated. Everyone cried out in shock. How is that possible? The old devil twisted his index and middle fingers lightly. The sword snapped. In the same motion, he struck Luo 13's chest with a palm. Luo 13 seemed to lose all thought, completely forgetting to continue his attack. Lu Zhou stood firmly on the sacred ground. Blue lotus energy flowed into the earth, and the faint image of a blooming blue lotus could be seen. The palm strike landed, accompanied by a cracking sound. Luo 13, face down, flew back faster than he had arrived, crashing into the ground like a dog eating dirt. The scene fell into an eerie silence. The disciples of the three sects all held their breath, staring in disbelief at Sword Saint Luo 13, who had been sent flying by a single palm from the old devil. This Luo 13, one of the 8 altars of Cloud Sect, master of the Sword Altar, known by all as the Sword Saint. Luo 13 wasn't dead, but it felt like a heavy hammer had smashed into his chest. His internal organs seemed crushed, an unbearably painful sensation. He struggled to suppress the surging blood and energy. Elders, sect masters, even Yuntian Luo himself, including Lung Luo and Pan Litian, who stood not far behind Lu Zhou watching, none of them could understand how that one palm had done it. After a brief silence, Luo 13 could no longer suppress the churning within him. His face turned red, and with a muffled groan, he spat out blood. The disciples of Cloud Sect cried out in alarm. Elder Luo, Master Luo, just one palm was enough to defeat the Sword Altar's Grand Master. What kind of power and technique was that? That Earth-grade sword, in the hands of the old devil, had snapped like paper. Yuntian Luo shoved away Feng Yiji, who was supporting him, pointed at Luo 13, and cursed. You're rebelling? Luo 13 felt as if a bucket of cold water had been dumped over him. Confused, he said, Patriarch? Yuntian Luo questioned sternly. Who gave you the courage to attack my honored guest? Lu Zhou stroked his beard and spoke indifferently. You're trying to avenge the sword maniac, Luo Changqing? Yes, Luo 13 answered without hesitation. If not for Yuntian Luo's sake, that palm just now would have taken your life. That strike, which included catching the sword, had used nearly 1/3 of Lu Zhou's heavenly writing extraordinary power. He could have used more than half of his heavenly writing divine ability to kill Luo 13 outright, but he chose not to. Yuntian Luo had sacrificed 20 years of his lifespan to reveal the scene of breaking through to 9 leaves. For that alone, Lu Zhou had shown restraint. Luo 13 grew furious. So my junior brother died for nothing? A mocking laugh rang out from the cloud-piercing flying chariot. What a joke. Luo Changqing tried to assassinate my second senior brother while he was weakened. Were we supposed to sit there and let it happen? Luo 13 looked up toward the flying chariot. Assassinate? The speaker was Evil Sky Pavilion's 4th disciple, Ming Shirin. After listening to Duan Xing's boasting that day, he'd gone and learned more details, and only then found out that Luo Changqing had indeed tried to assassinate his second senior brother. Ming Shirin spoke slowly and clearly. Cloud Sect sent over 10 Divine Court Realm cultivators to help surround and attack my master at Green Sun Mountain. How do you plan to settle that debt? And what about your Cloud Sect's 6th elder, Ding Fanqiu, who impersonated my master and committed atrocities around crossing the Sky River? How do you explain that one? To think your Cloud Sect Sword Saint, a man of the righteous path, yet you understand nothing of honor, propriety, or shame. If I were you, I would have executed Luo Changqing myself for the greater good. I'd have respected you for that. What Ming Shirin said was exactly what Lu Zhou had been thinking. This disciple was well taught. Yuntian Luo swept his gaze across the 3 sect masters. Is this true? Cloud Sect Sect Master Yun Wuji knelt down and said, Patriarch, please allow me to explain. As for the matter with Ding Fanqiu, I already sent Special Envoy Li Yundao to offer the Black Magnolia as an apology to Evil Sky Pavilion. That issue has long been settled. As for the siege against Senior and the attempted assassination of Evil Sky Pavilion's second mister, that was entirely Cloud Sect's own fault. No one else is to blame. Ming Shirin laughed and said, now that's more like it, but I must correct you on one point. My master killed Luo Changqing purely in self-defense. At the root of it all, the fault lies with you. By rights, Cloud Sect should have already apologized to my master and begged for forgiveness. Ming Shirin's words left Luo 13 speechless. I'm not finished. Luo 13, you're the only person to have survived a duel with my second senior brother's sword. With how well you know him, do you truly believe he would commit such a vile act? Luo 13 froze again. Though he hadn't spent much time with Yu Shangrong, he was certain Yu Shangrong was definitely not the kind of man to stoop to treachery. On the other hand, when he thought of his own junior brother Luo Changqing, it actually seemed more plausible. He knew his junior all too well. To achieve his goals, Luo Changqing often went to outrageous lengths. Yuntian Luo had essentially understood the full story by now. He slowly nodded, his expression darkening, and said, Yunwuji, come here. Patriarch? Yunwuji had no idea what the patriarch intended, but had no choice but to walk over obediently. Just then, Yun Tianluo suddenly raised his large hand and slapped it across with full force. Showing no mercy, there was even a faint gust of forceful energy in the strike, as it landed squarely on Yunwuji's face. Yun Tianluo's slap landed solidly. Half of Yunwuji's face swelled up. Go, kneel, and apologize to Brother Ji. Yunwuji froze on the spot. Lu Zhou let out a faint sigh. At Yun Tianluo's age, his strength had declined. The three sects had long since fragmented and gone their separate ways. This reminded Lu Zhou of Ji Tiandao, or perhaps of his current self. With age, all one could do was slap people. Lu Zhou gave a cold snort. I've always been reasonable. For Yun Tianluo's sake, I won't hold Cloud Sect accountable. But if it happens again. As he finished, chills ran through the entire Cloud Sect. This matter should end here. If things truly fall apart, it won't benefit either side. If kneeling and apologizing solved everything, what use would fists be? It won't raise anyone's cultivation level. Unexpectedly, Yun Tianluo was deeply moved and bowed. On behalf of the three sects, I thank Brother Ji. Lu Zhou flicked his sleeve and said calmly, a trivial matter. After saying that, Lu Zhou turned and walked into the air. Step by step, he headed toward the cloud-piercing flying chariot. Pan Litian, Lin Luo, and Little Yuaner flew toward the flying chariot at the same time. Back on the flying chariot, Ming Shirin flattered, Master, your might is unparalleled. Lu Ping from Luo's sect quickly flew over and said, allow me to see you off. Everyone looked on speechlessly. Lu Ping had completely disgraced Luo's sect, but they couldn't really say anything. He had brought in so many powerhouses. Of course he had to see them out. What else could he do? Fight them all to the death? Yun Tianluo cupped his fists and said, until we meet again. From afar, Lu Zhou's voice replied, until we meet again. Not until the cloud-piercing flying chariot vanished over the horizon did the disciples of Cloud, Sky, and Luo's sect finally breathe a sigh of relief. Patriarch Yun Tianluo sighed and shook his head. Man Gongwei, Yun Wuji, and Fengmiji, the three sect masters, were startled and quickly knelt properly before the patriarch. Yun Tianluo said slowly, have my words lost all meaning? The three sect masters quickly replied, we wouldn't dare. Yun Tianluo's tone softened greatly. Do you know what was sealed inside that chessboard? The three shook their heads. We do not. Nan Gongwei had been watching the clash earlier from the side. Seeing the overwhelming sword energy and the glowing patterns on the sacred ground, he had simply thought it was a clash of techniques, nothing particularly unusual. Yun Tianluo shook his head again and sighed heavily. That's precisely why I didn't pass the chessboard to you. What's sealed inside is the secret to my attempt at breaking through to 9 leaves. Nan Gongwei, Yun Wuji, and Fengmiji all trembled, bowing low to the ground. Patriarch, something so important. How could you give it to an outsider instead of the three sects? What were the three thinking? With a complicated look in his eyes, Nan Gongwei stood up and asked, why? Yun Tianluo turned with a flick of his sleeve, his voice booming with a final surge of strength. You are unworthy. To reach 9 leaves is a path to death. The three looked at each other in disbelief. A path to death? They were still quite far from reaching 8 leaves, so naturally, they didn't understand the intricacies and taboos involved. Yun Tianluo paused in his tone and said, in all these years of seclusion, I've been pondering what went wrong. I tried everything, even sealed away my memories. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. I finally understood one thing, that difficult problems should be left to those who understand better. Many cultivators are unwilling to share their insights and breakthroughs, yet the cultivation notes of great cultivators are often more valuable than advanced techniques themselves. The great truths are simple. Since I couldn't break through myself, why not entrust it to someone more promising? You're so insightful, I guessed. Yun Tianluo murmured to himself, just as Brother Ji said, who says the truth can't be challenged? That was the reason he chose to clash with Lu Zhou. It wasn't complicated, just a simple thought. If he had passed the chessboard to the three sect masters, it wouldn't have been a gift, but a death sentence. Who's that guy? No idea. Nan Gongwei asked in confusion. Patriarch, was your clash with Evil Sky Pavilion because of this? Yun Tianluo slowly turned and said, that's right. Do you know why I made you kneel and apologize to Brother Ji? The three shook their heads again. Yun Tianluo continued, I have a feeling that he will find a way to break through to 9 leaves. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire sacred ground fell silent, everyone staring at Patriarch Yun Tianluo in utter shock. Nan Gongwei looked utterly incredulous. How is that possible? Yun Tianluo said calmly, Brother Ji may be older than me, but when I clashed with him just now, I felt a boundless vitality from him. This is not the kind of vitality a man at the end of his life can possess. A storm surged in the hearts of the three, as they recalled how Sword St. Luo 13 unleashed a heaven-shaking, soul-stirring strike, yet it was effortlessly defeated by the Pavilion Lord of Evil Sky Pavilion with a single move. Could someone at the end of their life really do that? Yun Tianluo turned and walked toward the edge of the sacred ground. Even if you were in the right, not to mention you're not, you'll still have to swallow this insult, for my sake. The three were utterly dumbfounded. The other disciples all spoke in unison, respectfully seeing off the patriarch. The cloud-piercing flying chariot drifted slowly through the sea of clouds and bumped into a clueless goose. Did you bring the barbecue seasoning? Brought it. Little Yuaner tilted her little head and said, Master, since 4th senior brother made such a good point. Why not just wipe out Cloud Sect? Lu Ping stumbled, nearly losing his balance. At that moment, the flying chariot also gave a slight jolt. Sorry, so sorry. Lu Ping really wanted to slap himself. Why had he volunteered to escort these big shots? Was his brain caught in a door at that moment? But then he thought again. Those dumb elders of Luo's sect would definitely criticize him non-stop anyway. Might as well come out and hear some high-level talk from the real experts. Little Yuaner suddenly added, like this helmsman, shouldn't he be chopped into pieces right away? Lu Ping quickly said, sorry, my hand slipped. Lu Zhou stroked his beard, while gazing at the receding sea of clouds. The little girl really had improved quite a bit compared to before. At least she took in the reasoning Ming Shirin explained. Being able to listen to reason meant that, at the very least, her stance was correct. Before Lu Zhou could respond, Ming Shirin chuckled and said, little junior sister, that's the territory of the three sects, protected by dozens of barriers and guarded by many experts. There's no need to go to war over it. When reason should be spoken, it must be spoken. Otherwise, word might spread that our evil sky pavilion is easy to push around. Little Yuaner's face was greasy. Oh, Ming Shirin continued, Yun Tianluo's face still needs to be respected. A chessboard clash, with heaven and earth as the board. Just to answer Master's question, he burned 20 years of lifespan. Our evil sky pavilion values reason too, don't you think? Little Yuaner nodded like a pecking chick. I get it now. Thank you, Master. Ming Shirin scratched his head. Shouldn't it be thank you, senior brother instead? Disciplined, kind-hearted Yuaner gained 100 merit points. Lu Zhou glanced over and gave a slight nod. Lu Ping was even more confused. Weren't the big shots discussing 9 leaves or lifespan? How did it turn into this? Ming Shirin lightly leapt over to the side of the deck, looked down, and suddenly exclaimed, there's a large area of withering below. The old devil Lu Zhou stepped to the edge, looked down, and then said, slow down. Lu Ping, being the youngest elder of Luo sect, had no problem steering the flying chariot. The flying chariot gradually reduced speed and glided slowly through the withered trees. The trees and grass below, apart from the withered patch, seemed normal otherwise. Seeing that the youngest disciple seemed easier to talk to, Lu Ping asked in a soft voice, Mr. Ninth, how's my piloting? Little Yuaner rolled her eyes at him. SOSO, you're way worse than my 4th senior brother. She found Ming Shirin's words quite reasonable, so she gave a perfunctory response just for form's sake. If it had been in the past, and Lu Ping dared ask her such a question, she would have slapped him across the face. Lu Ping glanced over and thought to himself, dang, even evil Sky Pavilion's Mr. Fourth only gets to steer. That means I'm steering with honor. Ming Shirin, observing the withered area below, said, the patches of withering up ahead are getting fewer. Lin Luo, standing nearby with hands behind his back, remarked, something's not right. Could someone be behind this? Pan Litian recalled the scene in the Blackwood Forest. He remembered that during the forest fire, the area had also turned completely withered. I'm afraid someone is trying to defy the heavens and borrow life from the sky. The big shots were finally discussing high-level topics, so Lu Ping immediately perked up his ears, listening carefully and attentively. The old devil Lu Zhou spoke. The method of borrowing life has appeared throughout history, and not one ended well. In the history of the cultivation world, many cultivators have tried all sorts of means to extend their lifespan. These kinds of people lack the fate for 8 leaves, yet suffer the illness of 8 leaves. Ming Shirin asked, should I go down and investigate, Master? Lu Zhou looked in the direction of Evil Sky Pavilion and said, return to Evil Sky Pavilion first. You got it. Meanwhile, Underworld Sect Branch. Yu Xinghai pointed to the western side of the map and said, the entire situation in East State is already under the control of the Underworld Sect. Wei Zhuiyan's forces are too weak. In less than a month, East State will belong to our Underworld Sect. Siwaya said, Wei Zhuiyan was ordered to suppress us, but unfortunately, he's not a true commander of armies. However, we must be cautious of this Li Genie. Yu Xinghai frowned slightly. What you said makes sense. This Li Genie has made moves twice now. She does have some skill. Siwaya pointed toward Lulan's direction. What worries me now isn't Wei Zhuiyan's forces, but Yu Xinghai frowned again. The foreign tribes? Siwaya continued. If East State descends into chaos and Lulan takes the opportunity to invade, we'll be attacked from both front and rear. Yu Xinghai nodded. Then send someone to keep watch. At the mention of being attacked from both sides, Yu Xinghai suddenly asked, any news from Evil Sky Pavilion? After the barrier disappeared, the righteous sects had been watching for an opportunity, planning a new demon-slaying campaign. Yu Xinghai sneered. A new demon-slaying plan? Slay my master. The old man? Siwaya nodded, acknowledging it with no objection, but it seems that second senior brother and master have suddenly reconciled. Hearing this, Yu Xinghai frowned deeply and slowly sat down. With Yu Shanrong returning to Evil Sky Pavilion, how would those righteous sects dare to act rashly now? Yu Xinghai suddenly slammed his fist down, cracking the table in front of him, and snorted. I never should have gone easy on him. I told you long ago, second senior brother isn't fit to handle things. Do you believe me now? Siwaya thought to himself, what does this have to do with me? But still said aloud, second senior brother made a death list. All of them were among those who once attacked Golden Court Mountain. Everyone on that list has died by his sword. Yu Xinghai said dismissively, with that kind of personality, it's only a matter of time before he suffers a loss. He thinks that just because he reached 8 leaves, there's no one in the world who can touch him. If not for formations, barriers, and pills, the underworld sect would have already conquered all the sects and unified the land. The divine capital's 10 absolute array. Yu Zhenghai had studied it for years, and still hadn't found a proper solution. Senior brother, we should focus on the present. Once we take Yi State, I suggest we push north and seize Liang State. Hearing that, Yu Zhenghai laughed heartily and said, with you by my side, how could I not rule the world? Sword Tomb. Within the pitch-black sword tomb, only a faint beam of light fell from a circular opening above. Two shadowy figures stood outside the 7 absolute array, watching the neatly flying sword formation. One of the shadowy figures looked at the body within the formation and said, are you sure you can help me attain the power of 9 leaves? The other shadow replied hoarsely, you think 9 leaves is like plain rice, something anyone can eat? 9 leaves is unlikely, but you can surpass 8 leaves. If you can't do it, don't promise it. You gave me your word. Bama's voice was deep and forceful. Zhang Yuanshan, you're on Yu Shanrong's list. You have no choice. If you regret it, then leave now. Standing beside him was none other than the sect master of Orthodox sect, Zhang Yuanshan. After the destruction of Orthodox sect, Zhang Yuanshan had nowhere to run. His reputation was poor to begin with, and now he had become a rat on the street. He'd even ended up on Yu Shanrong's kill list. He couldn't eat well, nor sleep soundly, watching as one cultivation master after another was mysteriously slain by the sword demon Yu Shanrong. He fell into despair. Zhang Yuanshan's eyes widened as he spat out in frustration, the result of a lifetime of research, gathering all life energy through witchcraft. I'm on the same boat as you. Trust me. Bama's voice brimmed with confidence. Then why did you bring me here? Zhang Yuanshan couldn't understand. Bama didn't respond. He slowly raised his hand. Streams of purple energy began to converge within the 7 absolute array, while the sword formation in the sky seemed completely unaware. This place is a convergence of pure yang and unyielding energy. A powerful expert must have once cultivated here. I couldn't find them. But then he changed the subject and pointed at the body within the 7 absolute array. This one will do. Zhang Yuanshan was completely puzzled. A corpse? Just as he was still confused, the body suddenly moved. Zhang Yuanshan was shocked. Puppet control technique. Bama sensed the condition of the body. It's a master from the Buddhist sect. Zhang Yuanshan's voice trembled slightly. What are you planning to do? Bama spoke calmly. You'll only get 2 or 3 chances to strike. I'll use all the life energy to enhance your power. A flash of unwillingness crossed Zhang Yuanshan's eyes, but in the end, he nodded. Bama's palms lit up with purple vapor, and he began chanting under his breath. What the hell is this? That guy called Bama was uttering strange notes from his mouth. As the notes gathered together, a gust of wind seemed to blow in from the illuminated opening above. Around the 7 absolute array, one witchcraft formation after another began to appear, and energy started to converge. Zhang Yuanshan watched with excitement. He could already feel the energy gathering, as if he were witnessing the moment of surpassing 8 leaves. A bunch of lunatics. Outside the sword tomb, purple vapor rose into the air, spreading outward along the ground. Wherever the purple gas passed, all the flowers, grass, and trees withered completely. At the same time, similar purple gases appeared in different locations, gathering energy from the surroundings. Groves of trees slowly wilted. This was by a small lake, several dozen miles from Golden Court Mountain. White clothes, a white dress, and a white cloak were scattered all over the ground, and neatly folded at that. And within the forest near the lakeside, a purple circle was slowly spreading. It was drawing in nearby life force and energy. Trees withered, flowers and grass wilted. Some birds fled in all directions, while others, unwilling to yield, landed on the purple circle. The circle seemed to sprout tendrils, grabbing the birds, and in an instant, they turned into piles of bones. Glug, bubble after bubble rose from the mirror-like lake surface. At that moment, a wave of water surged into the sky, surrounded by forceful energy, instantly evaporating the surrounding moisture. Hair like a waterfall, skin like snow. As her eyes opened, the clothes on the shore flew toward her. With a graceful spin, the waves settled down, revealing her true appearance. Ethereal, otherworldly, breathtaking. Yi Tianxin let out a sigh. Still not quite enough. She stepped through the air toward the shore, and halfway there, she sensed something unusual. Witchcraft. Back when she found a derived moon palace, she had studied witchcraft. Seeing this scene now, how could she not be shocked? She flew dozens of miles, encountering more and more withered trees. Something strange was going on. She looked toward the direction of Evil Sky Pavilion, but it was far too distant. On a clear day, she could only make out the blurry outline of Golden Court Mountain, unable to discern any specific details. Yi Tianxin scanned the nearby environment once more, then dove down, landing beside a purple circle that had already faded. Her fair hand flipped over. The emotional ring glowed like jade, spinning rapidly. It spun out toward the surroundings, swept over the purple circle, then returned to her palm. A puppet array? Since there were no dead things within the purple circle, it couldn't be used to control puppets. This grand shaman wasn't nearby, yet was still able to cast such a powerful randomized witchcraft array. This witchcraft cultivator was no ordinary foe. After a moment of contemplation, Yi Tianxin hovered once again and rose high into the sky. There's someone. She flew toward a distant group moving through the sky in formation, a square array of dozens of monks flying through the air. She never had a good impression of monks, and was just about to use her great supernatural powers to leave, when one of the monks sent her a voice transmission. Lady Benefactor, please wait. What is it? Please don't misunderstand. This humble monk is Dharma Master Shujing, abbot of Heaven Chosen Temple. We are merely passing through Heaven Chosen Temple's Shujing. Lady Benefactor actually recognizes this old monk. I have matters to attend to. Forgive me for not keeping you company. May I ask how far it is from here to Golden Court Mountain? Yi Tianxin found it amusing. If you just fly a bit farther, you'd see Golden Court Mountain. Why bother coming over to ask for directions? No idea, Yi Tianxin replied, then flickered away into the distance. Benefactor, please stay. A six-leaf hunter tribulation insight avatar stood tall in the sky. Great supernatural powers. She casually turns out to be a six-leaf. Let's just head back. I think Evil Sky Pavilion doesn't need us anymore. The monks looked utterly awkward. They knew Evil Sky Pavilion was powerful, filled with experts, so naturally, their enemies would be experts too. But bumping into a random passerby who turned out to be six-leaf really crushed their confidence. Benefactor G once showed great kindness to Heaven Chosen Temple. A drop of grace should be repaid with a fountain in return. If any of you are afraid, you may leave Heaven Chosen Temple right now. I wouldn't dare, Master. I know my mistake. Now that the barrier around Golden Court Mountain has disappeared for some time, this is when they need help the most. To retreat at such a time is a grave taboo in Buddhism. Disciple will remember. And another thing, stop bringing up the divide between righteous and evil in front of me. Yes, Master. All the disciples spoke in unison. Ba. Half a day later, Evil Sky Pavilion. Lu Zhou glanced at the remaining points on the interface. Merit points, 3,700. With this amount of merit points, I can just barely afford one lethal strike card. Perhaps it was because of the extraordinary power of the heavenly writing, but Lu Zhou felt that the value of lethal strike cards was gradually diminishing. Of course, if faced with an opponent who truly couldn't be handled, a lethal strike card was still the best option. By that point, cost effectiveness was no longer the concern. Just then, a prompt sounded. Ding. Killing one target. Earn 1,500 merit points. This disciple, probably used to too much freedom, doesn't even send a letter back. I don't even know where Yu Shanrong is now. He simply thought that since Yu Shanrong was highly skilled and powerful, he might as well let him go. Letting him roam outside and earn merit points was also a way of utilizing his value. After all, with himself and a few old men guarding the mountain, that was already sufficient. If Yu Shanrong stayed on the mountain, it would indeed be a waste. Reporting to Master, monks from Heaven Chosen Temple request an audience. What's Heaven Chosen Temple doing at Golden Court Mountain? I'm not sure either, Master. I remember that after Master Kongwen Shi and the 4 divine monks died, Heaven Chosen Temple, fearing retaliation, had to abandon their original location. I don't even know where they moved to afterward. Lu Zhou had no intention of seeking them out himself. After the great battle at Great Void Temple, Heaven Chosen Temple had long lost its former glory. Only the Buddhist monk Shujing remained as their sole expert, left with no choice but to lead the disciples into seclusion and relocation. At this moment, the old 8th, Zhu Honggong, appeared at the palace entrance, waving his gauntlets, just about to kneel and pay his respects. Ming Shirin frowned. That's enough. Hurry up and come in. Disciple greets Master. What is it? I heard from Zhou Jifeng that the people from Heaven Chosen Temple had come, so I came to check it out. Heaven Chosen Temple came. What's that got to do with you? Worried they're here to snatch your precious Zen robe? Look around. This is Evil Sky Pavilion. Even if you gave them 10 lives, they wouldn't dare lay a finger on you. 4th senior brother is absolutely right. Ba. This humble monk greets all the benefactors. No one visits the Buddha Hall without reason. What brings you to Evil Sky Pavilion? The old monk said calmly. To repay a debt. Have you eaten? Do monks eat meat? I can renounce my vows. Your robes are dirty. Need a wash? Okay. Zhu Honggong scratched his head. Repaying a debt? Ha? Ba. May all merit be shared equally with all beings. May disasters be dispelled equally. And may I repent for the karmic sins of myself and all beings across the 10 directions and 3 times. Alright, cut it out. I don't understand a word of that. I'll take it that you're here to truly repay a debt. This humble monk heard that the barrier at Golden Court Mountain has long disappeared. Knowing how the 10 great sects operate, they're bound to come back with a vengeance. Heaven Chosen Temple may not rival Great Void Temple, but we are not ungrateful. This is the first time I've met monks like you. Am I dreaming? Heaven Chosen Temple has recently accepted 1,000 new disciples. With but a single word from me, they can be summoned here at once. Evil Sky Pavilion isn't as terrifying as the rumors say. Did you also let the Lady Benefactor wash your robes? Why don't we discuss with the abbot about renouncing monkhood? Ming Shirin put away his smile and looked at his master. Let's leave the decision to Master. Seeing how serious and upright he looked while saying this, he didn't seem to be joking at all. Your intentions, I understand. Golden Court Mountain is not in danger. You may leave. Shujing was stunned, not expecting such a clean and decisive response. Senior, please wait a moment. Lu Zhou looked toward Jian Aijian, stroked his beard, and said, what insight do you have? Insight might be too much to ask, but I do have a small opinion. The old devil narrowed his eyes and said one word. Speak. Heaven Chosen Temple specializes in Buddhist techniques, whether it's sonic arts or healing. With all the strange occurrences lately, they might come in handy. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said slowly, what strange occurrences? During the days you were at the 3 sects, I had nothing better to do, so I wandered around. I noticed some areas showing signs of withering. I got curious, looked into it, and sure enough, it wasn't random. Near the divine capital, Rue North, Anyang, Upper Prime, time, and even the sword tomb, all showed the same phenomenon. The only ones capable of this are grand shamans. Grand shamans? The one who ambushed outside Heaven's Will Garden. The Confucian school's vast righteous forceful energy and Buddhist techniques are both effective against witchcraft. That's why I suggest letting them stay. I thought it was something serious. You think Evil Sky Pavilion needs their support? What a joke. So then, how long does Abbot Shujing plan to stay at Golden Court Mountain? Until Benefactor G's final day. Of course, Zhu Honggong was about to shout in loyalty and scold him for spouting nonsense, but to his surprise, Master simply waved his hand and said, "Since you have the heart to repay kindness, I accept it. Once Bama is brought to justice, you may leave." Who's Bama? He didn't hesitate and still pressed his palms together. Amitba, take them to the North Pavilion. Disciple is acquainted with Monk Su. Allow me to escort them. Good to see you. The precious Zen robe suppresses the formation lines. Help me remove it. So the abbot is also a fellow cultivator. Lu Zhou said to Ming Shireen, "Go and summon Elder Pan and Elder Lung." Disciple obeys. I wonder what matter the pavilion lord summoned this old man for. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said, "The rest may leave." Ming Shireen and Jian Aijian were stunned. What kind of important matter required even them to step out? The female disciples left the hall. "Let's go hang the laundry." "Master, I'd like to stay and listen too. What you're about to say must be extremely important in terms of relationship and trust." Ming Shireen considered himself no less than Ling Luo or Pan Litian. "Well, senior, just treat me like a pillar. No matter what I hear, I swear it won't leave this room. Since you both wish to stay, then listen carefully." Disciple obeys. "Thank you, senior." Ling Luo and Pan Litian showed looks of anticipation. For the pavilion lord to treat something with such gravity, it could not be an ordinary matter. Lu Zhou's gaze fell upon Ling Luo and Pan Litian. "During the Luo sect's sacred land chess match, I discovered a method to break through to 9 leaves." Even though Ling Luo and Pan Litian were both men of vast experience, they were still shocked upon hearing these words. Jian Aijian nearly lost his balance and collapsed into a chair. Ming Shireen looked up, his eyes filled with awe as he stared at his master. Ling Luo spoke, his voice a bit hoarse and trembling. "Pavilion lord, you saw the answer within the chess game?" Lu Zhou nodded. Yun Tian Luo sealed his method of breaking through to 9 leaves within the chessboard. The true shackle preventing cultivators from advancing to 9 leaves is the golden lotus beneath the 100 tribulation insight avatar. The 4 of them were stunned. That sentence challenged the very foundation of cultivation knowledge. It was widely known that the goal of all cultivators was to form 100 tribulation insight golden lotus. With a golden lotus, one was considered a true expert. When breaking through from 8 to 9 leaves, the golden lotus would absorb the cultivator's energy and lifespan. This was the so-called truth of the great limit. Throughout the long passage of time, countless cultivators had tried to reach 9 leaves, and after a vast number of failures, this unbreakable truth was eventually established. This truth deterred future cultivators from attempting 9 leaves, and gradually, it became a shared belief. The golden lotus drains lifespan. I once had a similar thought when I saw Gong Yuan do back then, but I didn't dare believe it. If that's truly the case, how much lifespan does the golden lotus drain? If a genius cultivator reaches 8 leaves at a young age, could they use their vast remaining lifespan to push into 9 leaves, like little Yuaner? Unlikely. The journey of cultivation is incredibly long. So many years have passed, and there's never been a shortage of peerless geniuses, yet none have broken into 9 leaves, which means the lifespan absorbed by the golden lotus must be no less than 1,000 years. The great hall fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. 1,000 years. That's the entire lifespan of a top-tier cultivator. The vast majority of cultivators can't even reach 8 leaves, let alone live for 1,000 years. With that being the case, how could anyone step into 9 leaves? Ling Luo and Pan Litian both shook their heads helplessly. At that moment, Jian Aijian couldn't hold back any longer. He bowed and said, "May I speak a few words, senior?" "Speak your mind." "When I was in the palace, I often read through the archives in the inner treasury. Some ancient texts did mention things related to 8 leaves. Back then, I didn't pay much attention to it, but thinking back now, some of the content was actually quite similar to what senior just said. One key piece of information, though I don't recall the exact wording, generally meant to reach 9 leaves, unless you're born with 8 leaves in the womb. Though the phrasing was a bit crude, it oddly echoed what Lu Zhou just said. If one were born with 8 leaves in the womb, they might possess a 1,000-year lifespan, and thus have a chance to reach 9 leaves. Who could possibly be born with 8 leaves? Even if someone really was born with 8 leaves, how can you be sure the golden lotus wouldn't absorb 1,500 years, or even 2,000? Ming Shireen's question actually left everyone speechless. Even Lu Zhou gave him a glance. Ling Luo and Pan Litian both sighed. In the end, it's still an unsolvable dilemma. At this moment, Lu Zhou spoke up. His tone was filled with unbelievable confidence. "Then why not think about it the other way around?" "The other way around? Please enlighten us, Pavilion Lord." "If the golden lotus absorbs lifespan, then just cut it off." The great hall fell into silence. Yet this single sentence, whether to the seasoned veterans like Ling Luo and Pan Litian, or the younger ones like Jian Aijian and Ming Shireen, stirred a storm in their hearts. Jian Aijian swallowed hard. "Wait, let me catch my breath. Elder, cutting off the golden lotus would mean suffering severe damage and losing peak power. How would one reach 9 leaves then? From the current understanding, there are 2 ways ways to reach 9 leaves. The first is by meeting the Golden Lotus's requirements and stepping into 9 leaves naturally. This is extremely difficult because no one knows how much lifespan the lotus consumes. 1,000 years? 2,000? That's exactly why Lu Shou keeps a reversal card as backup. The second way is to sever the lotus and cultivate anew. This method has never been explored, but who's to say it's impossible? Is it possible that cutting the lotus off might not have any side effects at all? The 4 of them were stunned once again. A 9 leaf without the golden lotus. That would be a pseudo 9 leaf at best. Even without the lotus, you'd still be 1 realm higher. The pressure from such a gap would be enough to crush you. Based on the available data, a 9 leaf avatar's height should be no less than 15 meter. Lin Luo and Pan Litian both nodded. Ah, we're getting old. Our thinking isn't as sharp as you youngsters. Just as those words were sighed out, Jian Ijian and Ming Shirin both looked at Ji Tiandao. Pan Litian's old face flushed slightly, a bit embarrassed. If I'm old, then what is Pavilion Master? Regardless, this discussion was destined to overturn their previous understanding of cultivation. Lin Luo and Pan Litian bowed in unison. To hear the Pavilion Master's words is better than studying for 100 years. They're just ideas. If you wish to try, you must be extremely cautious. Meanwhile, at the Sword Ruins exit, a disheveled, sinister figure appeared. His entire body was bound by rope, and on the other end of that rope was a dried-up corpse, wrapped in tattered burial clothes. Wherever he walked, plants and grass withered. The grime and eerie aura clinging to him was like a dark mist that enveloped his whole being. Several cultivators bowed simultaneously. Greetings, Sect Master. You, what happened to you? Zhang Yuanshan slowly raised his head, opened his eyes, and lifted his right hand. A strange purple tendril of energy emerged, linking to his palm print and spreading outward. Several disciples were caught off guard and grabbed by those eerie palms at their throats. No, please, no, Sect Master. The life force from the disciples was drawn into Zhang Yuanshan through the tendrils and absorbed into his body. Zhang Yuanshan opened his cracked lips and uttered one word. Good. Then a low voice echoed beside his ears. Don't waste time on meaningless targets. Zhang Yuanshan lowered his head, nodded. All right. He gripped the rope and dragged the corpse forward. No one knew how long passed, but Zhang Yuanshan eventually reached a lakeside. Golden Court Mountain. The low voice replied again. Keep moving. Golden Court Mountain is not your goal. Zhang Yuanshan dragged the corpse and continued heading into the distance. At that moment, in the forest by the lakeside, Yi Tianxin watched him vanish from sight. She muttered, a puppet. Then she looked toward Golden Court Mountain again, a hint of hesitation in her eyes. The next morning at Green Jade Altar, peaceful and quiet. Second Mister, you'd best stop waiting. Orthodox sect's territory has long been taken over by the underworld sect. Zhang Yuanshan is famous for being a coward. There's no way he's coming back. Yu Shanrong didn't open his eyes, but smiled faintly. No rush. Thank you for your concern. Just then, within several miles in front of the altar, patches of dark mist began appearing among the towering trees. Second Mister, looks like it's going to rain soon, the sect master said. We should treat you well. They say the sword demon is really down to earth. Might even become friends. Imagine telling people you know the sword demon. Such prestige. Step back. Yu Shanrong didn't turn his head, but raised his brow slightly. A sudden burst of forceful energy shot from his back. He gazed toward the forest ahead. The longevity sword in his hand began to tremble ever so slightly. Maybe a strong foe? Now this was interesting. He liked a good challenge. He enjoyed fighting worthy opponents, especially after crossing so many names off his list. Life had become dull, but now, this strange energy fluctuation from ahead rekindled his excitement. The trees began to wither. Leaves fluttered down. Yu Shanrong saw the disheveled Zhang Yuanshan dragging a corpse by rope through the woods. From above, the scene looked incredibly bizarre. Imagine, in a deserted wilderness, a corpse dragging, mud-covered, monstrous figure appeared before you. What would you think? You, Shanrong. Zhang Yuanshan muttered. We meet again. Yu Shanrong hadn't expected Zhang Yuanshan to become like this. He felt odd. You want to kill me? Everyone on the list shall die by my sword. Zhang Yuanshan uttered. His pupils darted erratically. The longevity sword was unsheathed. Sword intent, silent as wind. Yu Shanrong sensed the bizarre energy rippling off his foe and smiled slightly. How interesting. Streams of sword forceful energy formed in front of Yu Shanrong, spinning around the longevity sword as they descended. It was merely a light probe. The sword technique wasn't powerful. Several streams of sword forceful energy converged at once, shooting toward Zhang Yuanshan. Zhang Yuanshan didn't move. The forceful energy struck his body, then dissipated. He didn't fall. From his lofty height, Yu Shanrong said indifferently, witchcraft, a bit of a visual trick. Zhang Yuanshan felt the immense energy surging within him but still didn't make a move. He had only 2 to 3 chances to strike. He had to wait for the perfect moment to kill Yu Shanrong. Let's hope you're worthy of this sword. Yu Shanrong lightly tapped his toes, leaping down from the towering green jade altar. The air itself seemed to churn, and the sword forceful energy fell like snowflakes, endless and gentle, accompanied by the longevity sword, all directed at Zhang Yuanshan. Just then, inky black energy surged across Zhang Yuanshan's entire body. The dark, smoke-like energy rose into the sky. Yu Shanrong sensed the powerful vitality hidden within the black mist. Though he felt a trace voice of doubt. He didn't dwell on it. Instead, he focused on delivering his strike. In the blink of an eye, he closed the distance of several hundred meters. One sword thrust forward. Zhang Yuanshan didn't dodge. The sword pierced straight into his heart. If it were me, I'd be dead already. Zhang Yuanshan's eyes widened, bloodshot veins spreading across them, yet he smiled as he raised both palms. A tide of bizarre energy was about to surge toward Yushanrong. Eight-leaf avatar. Yushanrong stepped on his golden lotus. The avatar rapidly contracted. Then the golden lotus flipped. All the strange energy landed squarely on the golden lotus avatar, and in the next instant, the avatar vanished. Yushanrong was completely unharmed. He looked at Zhang Yuanshan, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Interesting. Zhang Yuanshan's hands trembled slightly, then steadied. He didn't seem satisfied with that strike. He had underestimated the strength of the sword demon Yushanrong. Interesting. I've challenged many experts from all across the 9 provinces and seas. Among them were those who truly threatened me. You count as one of them. Were it not for his countless battles, even a sliver of carelessness would have seen that eerie energy strike Yushanrong's chest directly. Everyone knows that the 100 Tribulation Insight Avatar has incredibly strong defense, yet few know that the strongest defense of the 100 Tribulation Insight Avatar isn't on the body, but on the Golden Lotus base. The Golden Lotus blocked that strike. Zhang Yuanshan struck his chest with a fierce palm, forcing the longevity sword out. He grabbed the longevity sword, formed a palm blade with his right hand, and slashed down hard. Boom! A loud crash echoed. The longevity sword was sent flying, spinning like a windmill as it flew back toward Yushanrong. Break a sword with your bare hands? Keep dreaming. After all, the longevity sword was a top-tier heaven-grade weapon, and its compatibility with Yushanrong had long reached perfection. It had clashed with countless weapons without ever being overpowered. How could it possibly be broken by someone barehanded? Dark energy surged around Zhang Yuanshan. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't truly black, but a deep, almost black purple, intensely concentrated. All the plants and trees within hundreds of meters withered completely. Yushanrong was now certain Zhang Yuanshan's body was no longer human. Otherwise, that earlier move, even if not fatal, would have left him severely wounded. But clearly, Zhang Yuanshan had not been affected by the sword at all. The inky energy formed a massive circle, enveloping everything within several hundred meters. Yushanrong activated his avatar, a 10-meter-tall figure that nearly matched the height of the green jade altar, leaving the underworld sect disciples utterly dumbfounded. Yushanrong remained calm, his figure rising toward the sky, stopping in front of the avatar. Then came a breathtaking scene. The avatar's arms actually came together. No one had ever heard that an avatar's limbs could move freely like a human's. The longevity sword was wrapped in powerful, forceful energy, forming a massive sword-shaped forceful energy. The avatar clamped its palms together around that sword forceful energy. This move is my own creation. Avatar and sword as one. Haven't thought of a name yet. With a sudden swing of its massive arms, the giant sword forceful energy slashed toward Zhang Yuanshan. At that critical moment, Zhang Yuanshan suddenly flung out a rope, pulling the corpse up to meet the sword forceful energy. That dried corpse suddenly opened its eyes midair, unleashing a terrifying surge of energy. At the same time, a black avatar appeared, head downward, feet upward, clashing directly with the sword forceful energy. Demon Zen.